Thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is exciting. My name is Lindsey Gardner-Penner. I am an Orpheus Therapist and a wellness coach. And we are excited to be doing these conversations and these interviews with all of us that are associated with Orpheus Mind Technologies, because what we just want to introduce the people behind Orpheus and what these tools are and how they can help so many different people. And I cannot wait to introduce Susan Laurie. So welcome, Susan.
Hi, Lindsey. Lovely to speak to you.
Yes, it's so good to see you. I'm in Arizona and Susan is over in England. And so we love that we have this technology where we can connect. Yeah. We invite you to comment, ask questions, share this video. We're going to be talking about some serious struggles that Susan has overcome. So we are eager for you to share these with people who you know who may be struggling with some mental health issues and addiction. So we look forward to hearing from you and join the conversation. Susan wrote From Rock Bottom to Sober Forever, and I love this book. I mean, it's so honest and it's so compelling, and I'm just excited about all the amazing things that you've been doing. So do you want to just do a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. I'm Susan Laurie. I was once very addicted to alcohol, which happened over many years. And 7 years ago, I discovered the Orpheus tools, and I haven't had a drink since. And like you said, I wrote the book From Rock Bottom to Sober Forever because I realized how lucky I'd been, and I wanted to help people like me. But then in my journey since then, amongst a lot of other things that I do, which I think we'll be talking about, I got involved with Orpheus, with the team, including yourself. And I'm just so excited to be finally allowed to almost talk about my recovery and Orpheus together, because most of the work I do, probably rightly so, is helping people like me, raising awareness, taking away stigma and shame around alcohol dependence. But I don't often get a chance to talk about the really powerful tool that is Orpheus that got me sober and saved my life, and that is no exaggeration. So thanks for inviting me to talk to you.
No, I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this. And your book is so brilliant about how honest you are with your experience and how blunt you are with some of the stories that you share. And especially the introduction. I just, it's so welcoming, even in the introduction, that you're, use this as me holding your hand as you're walking through this, if you're struggling with feeling lost and hopeless. And it's just so, I don't know, touching with the bluntness and the honesty. And it's such a clear timeline of how your journey progressed. Can you tell a little bit about this and how you found yourself from someone who went from loving a drink to problem drinking, and how this progressed to as serious as it got?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there about the book. That was what I really wanted to do, to try and explain what it's the reality, what it feels like to be somebody who just a completely ordinary person who, like a lot of people, has a drink, enjoys alcohol to let my hair down, and that's what I used to do. And in the book, I wanted to really describe how it progresses without people realizing. So yeah, I was just way back years ago, just an ordinary student, and then went from university into a job, liking to let my hair down with a drink, maybe using it sometimes for a bit of confidence, nothing unusual, totally ordinary. But you're right, it alcohol, because I didn't realize that, I maybe was using it for confidence and stuff over the years in my career, because alcohol, we develop a tolerance to it. It's just a basic biology. It's a fact that maybe you don't even think about whatever reason you have a drink for, whether it's to have a laugh or to maybe, if you're sad or whatever. Over time, your body just gets used to it, and you need more alcohol for exactly the same effect, which is something that I didn't realize. So over time, my alcohol consumption went up, but it's so gradual. And I've always said it sort of works by stealth, that you don't really notice it. And that's the thing about alcohol. Once you sort of cross that line into maybe drinking too much that is good for you, it's easy for it to start to get hold on you. And it has, once that starts to happen, there is no plateau. Even though me and most people who drink think it'll never happen to me, I'm totally in control. Gradually over time, with the amount I was drinking creeping up, I did go through all of the well-documented phases of becoming dependent on alcohol. In fact, I would say I'm a textbook example. So you go from enjoying a drink to maybe heavy drinking, and then that becomes problem drinking, and then problem drinking. For a long time, I was what you would call functioning. So I was doing a stressful job. At one point, I started my own business, but I was drinking a lot on an evening. So I was functioning, even though I was probably dependent on alcohol then. But then it gets to a stage where you can't function. So I went into that phase, and then ultimately rock bottom, where I knew it was killing me. But this took a long time. But I would say, I am textbook, and even though we all say it'll never happen to me, once that starts to happen, unless you address it and you stop it, you will progress. And sadly, that's what happened to me.
Yeah, that actually leads into my next question. So how did you know you hit rock bottom? What did that look like for you? And when you're there, like, how can you recognize that?
I think looking at my progression, some people would say, my goodness, wasn't it rock bottom when you woke up in hospital on a drip and you didn't know how you got there? Or wasn't it rock bottom when you were in trouble with the police? And because they're pretty serious things. But no, so even after they had happened, and I thought, oh my God, how bad can this possibly get? I'm in hospital on a drip and I can't remember getting here. It did get worse. And rock bottom for me was ultimately, I lost. I was on my own because I'd lost the people I loved, and it was 24/7 drinking. In terms of when I was awake, I was drinking, and drinking was to pass out. So I was either unconscious or I was drinking. So because of that, time in the 24-hour clock meant nothing to me. So I might be waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drinking myself to oblivion, and that felt normal then. But the thing that I realized about that time was I couldn't stop drinking, even if I'd wanted to. And at that stage, you can't, because you need to avoid withdrawal at all costs. If I stopped drinking, then I would have the most horrific hallucinations, like really terrifying. And I would have terrible physical withdrawals as well. Mm-hmm. And the most impending doom, anxiety, where I wanted to tear my own skin off and crawl up the walls. So rock bottom was the most desperate, dark place where my drinking was, 24/7. Nobody there to stop me because I'd lost everything. But I couldn't face sobering up to, I had to avoid withdrawal. But I honestly, at that stage, I just thought, I can't possibly face anyone ever again, because I'd caused so much hurt. And I accepted then that I was going to die. So that was what my rock bottom looked like. And
so you talk about all the different resources and things that you had tried, because you had tried multiple times to get sober, and you'd have, you know, some success and then you'd relapse. So can you talk about some of those and why you think that they didn't work for you personally?
Yeah, because obviously you don't, you know, like I said, this happened over years, and you don't get to that stage without realizing, you know, you have a problem, and trying to, nobody wants to live like that. It's very frightening. So over the years, when, you know, for example, even when I'd gone from, say, heavy drinking to problem drinking, but, you know, when people start to notice and you start doing things that are embarrassing, or people expressing concerns, I did sit in front of my GP, my doctor, many times, and referred to counselling many times. As things progress and you get more worried, and I was often in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, doing it properly, working the 12 steps with sponsors. I can, you know, vividly remember starting again and having renewed hope after relapsing. So all the things you would expect: counselling, Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in rehab as well a couple of times. Once was, you know, I sent myself to rehab, but another time I was dragged to rehab and I didn't want to go, kicking and screaming. And then, so there are those things that you would expect somebody, you know, that people would be familiar with and think, oh yeah, you would go to Alcoholics Anonymous, you would go to rehab, but other weird and wacky things as well, because when you're desperate and when you're scared, you don't want to keep turning up in front of your doctor in case, especially if you've got children, there's the worry that they'll have to report you, and you'll have your children taken off you. So often people, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, when you're that desperate, you're very vulnerable to spend money on people who say they can help you. So I saw over the years 5 different hypnotherapists who said, I can definitely help you. They couldn't, but I paid lots of money. I tried things like Chinese medicine, swinging crystals at people, putting crystals over, you know, lots of weird and wacky things that I paid a lot of money for, on top of rehab that costs a lot of money. And the reason I don't think they worked, and this is where, you know, I'm very passionate. It's because of the stigma around any addiction. People assume that it's because you're not trying hard enough, or you don't want to get sober, and we definitely have a blame culture. But I think ultimately all of these things, whatever they're dressed up as, whatever they are, they rely very much on willpower. And most people, unless you've been there, don't realize just how hard it is to beat an alcohol addiction once it's got a grip. And willpower, it's always, alcohol is always working on you, whether you're, you know, I spoke to people for example, when I was doing the 12 steps and stuff, my sponsor had been sober for 15 years, but she still couldn't have alcohol in the house because she said it would always be whispering, you know, even after 15 years. So ultimately, you're relying on willpower for a lot of these, whether it's rehab or AA or counselling. Your own willpower is what will stop you from picking up a drink. And I'll hold my hands up, my willpower just, you know, crumbled. Alcohol wore me down every single time. Even, you know, sometimes I did manage months of sobriety. So ultimately for me, that's why they didn't work. It was down to, they rely on how strong your willpower is.
Yeah, and I feel like anybody can identify with, even if it's not alcohol addiction or any willpower, is just sometimes you just get tired of having to work so hard to have everything under control. And it's,
that's even when I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about it, or I was patting myself on the back thinking, you know, oh my God, it's been a month, it's been 3 months. but I was still thinking about, it's been 3 months since I've had a drink. I was just still thinking about alcohol.
It was always ticking.
Yeah.
So you tried all these different things, and I'm sure that was discouraging. How did you come across the Orpheus tools? And then what compelled you to try that after you had tried so many other things?
It was, I asked myself this because I've been so lucky. It doesn't take very much effort for me to put myself back in the situation that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
I can still feel how dark it was and how much despair I felt. So finding the Orpheus tools, it was like a miracle, because because I was drinking all of the time, and I was either passed out or getting my next drink. The times in between were full of pain. And, if I was withdrawing or whatever, and I would then be desperate to get alcohol. And there was just this one time, I just had this moment where I was so upset, and I knew I was dying. And I just thought, oh my, I can remember being on my own in this room saying, please, somebody help me. And it was just something came over me. Instead of, getting my coat on, walking to the shop, getting some more alcohol, I got onto my computer again and did the same search that I'd done before, to when I found the other, other things that didn't work. So the very fact that I did that was, I'm surprised I did, because I'd failed so many times before, and it was just completely by fluke that I found the Orpheus tools, and Tim Fazakali, who used them so expertly. And when I emailed him, because I was so in such a bad way, I just wrote just a few words about, I've tried these things before, they haven't worked. And probably part of me hoping he wouldn't get back to me, and then I could say, well, I tried.
Yeah.
I'll have a drink. Yeah. But he replied in the kindest way and said, basically, let's talk.
Yeah. I'll let you know if I can't help you. That's just one thing.
Yeah. So I was so lucky, because that was over 7 years ago now.
So tell me a little bit about that then. So when you went to go work with Tim, what was that experience like for you?
I was with Tim for one day, for a long session. So it was quite intensive. But what I would say is it was very thorough.
Yeah.
Because and it was like nothing I'd ever, like I said, I'd seen 5 other hypnotherapists before. So this was like nothing else I'd experienced. And it was almost like, and this is where people find it difficult to believe, it was almost like in the course of that day, a switch in my brain around alcohol was switched off. But not just that, all of the negative beliefs about myself, and all of the little reasons that build up that had led to me using alcohol to sort of block things out, all of those were dealt with in one session. Each one was sort of eliminated, snuffed out, which is a very important point, because when you're, for example, and anyone who has sat in rooms doing the 12 steps or whatever, people talk about dry drunks and stuff, people who've just stopped drinking, but all of the issues that made them drink are still there and haven't been addressed, and that is torture in itself. But every issue that had brought me to become alcohol dependent was dealt with, and the actual alcohol was the last thing that we dealt with in the day, almost like that was just a symptom of everything else. And because I know how bad I was, and because I know I tried everything that you would expect me to try. I can honestly say that this is different. It's a game changer, because it's got nothing to do with willpower, or it was like a switch going off. It was that quick.
Well, and you describe it so well in the book about your experience with Tim, is almost like as he was turning down all of those emotions and turning that switch off of all of those reasons why you were drinking, it almost like it turned on this confidence and all of these things about yourself that you didn't realize. It was like programming all these positive things in your life and realizations about yourself that you might have forgotten about. And so it was like, while it was eliminating all of these negative emotions and negative things and why you were turning to drink, it was reminding you of all of these positive things in your life and about yourself was turned on.
Yeah, exactly. Because over the years, and probably, you know, part of some of the reasons that led me down that route of, you know, using alcohol anyway, the negative feelings and beliefs about myself that built up, that started a long time before I had my first drink of alcohol. Yeah, they were dealt with. Tim, whatever he did, because you know, I'm not a scientist, and that what he's done is so incredible. He eliminated those negative feelings about myself. But you're exactly right. Beneath all of those, there was still, and inside all of us, you know, no matter what trauma we've been through, or, you know, what things, beliefs about ourselves, or things other people might have said that have led us down a route where we might not feel so good about ourselves. Beneath all of that, there's still the essence of us, the real person, that lovely person that's been squashed by all of the crap. And Tim brought that all back. He hasn't changed my personality in that, you know, he's made me a different Susan. He's brought back all of the lovely stuff that I forgot and lost along the way and didn't believe about myself. And that is what is so incredible about the Orpheus tools. They take away the negative emotions that led me ultimately to drink, but also brought all of the positive stuff back, and self-belief and confidence and you know, loving yourself. So yeah, he didn't just leave me high and dry, taking away, he built me back up as well. But like I say, in one session.
I think that's what one part of the book that really resonated with me and that I took away. I had a similar, you know, experience when I started using these tools as I was dealing with my own issues and trauma and life situations, was that building of confidence and self-worth that I felt like I had lost. And so that's so clear. You talk about that. So you've been doing some incredible things being on the other side. I know it was a hard transition, and you kind of talk about that in the book. You know, once you had overcome your addiction, it was this, okay, now I'm kind of vulnerable back out in the world, having to now, I don't want alcohol anymore, but now I have to face, you know, building my life back up and building my relationships back up. And can you talk a little bit about like being on the other side of it, and also what you've kind of been doing other than writing your book?
Well, on the other side of it is such an important thing to talk about, because you don't get to that, you know, being on your own, drinking 24/7, not bathing, no hygiene, not caring, dying. You don't get to that without causing a lot of damage along the way, and a lot of chaos, which was ultimately why I was on my own. I'd hurt so many people, most importantly, my son. Sorry. But so coming on the other side, I will be okay. It's so important to say, I knew before I did anything, even though well, for a start, with something like when you've been as bad as me, time is of the essence to prove, and it's quite easy to prove that, am I drinking, am I not? But my family had been here so many times before, oh, I found this great person, oh, I'm going into rehab, this time it'll be different, I'm really, this is going to work. So there'd been all these false dawns. So me saying, I found this guy, I found these Orpheus tools, they were like, yeah, whatever. So I knew that I had to be very gentle with them. And so straight afterwards, I had no plans other than to see if I was sober, but also just sort of let the dust settle and let the people that I so desperately wanted to be back in my life trust me again. So that was my priority first off. And when you've caused that much chaos, that doesn't happen overnight. That was a long process, but it did happen over time. And then when that happened and I could sort of take a step back, I just thought, you have been so lucky. I knew what it was like to be trying everything, to be going to my doctor, to be going to counseling, and it not working, and how desperate you feel. And all I wanted to do, and this is true, was to get the message across to people like me, this hope. So I thought, how what's the easiest way to do it? How do I get this out there? So with the blessing of my family, I wrote my book. But I went knocking on doors, but the health service, the NHS here, health service, politicians, just there's this amazing thing. And there are all these, because so many people I met along the way died and do die. It's people don't realize that once it's that serious, it's so hard to. So yeah, when the dust settled, my family was my priority and my friends, and it's been amazing. But then it was like, I have to tell people about this. I have to help other people let them have what I've found.
Yeah, and I love the part where you say that you got to gradually feel like you could be a mom again. Like you knew that you had to kind of work to get that, to be able to do that again for your son. And I just thought, and I think that even like someone like your story, and like I remember, hearing interviews with you and stuff like that before I really got involved with the company, is I just resonated so much with your story that if she can overcome something like this that was so life-threatening, like I can overcome like these things that I'm dealing with. And that was my biggest motivation of wanting to take control of my mental health and stuff, is so that I could be present for my kids and be the best mom that they deserve to have, and not succumb to like all of the issues that I was dealing with. And so, yeah, like your story was so impactful in my life. And I'm not somebody who struggles with alcohol, but just with all of my other stuff. And so, yeah, it's just such a beautiful story.
And I feel, I almost feel in a very powerful position. I don't know if that's the right word now, because I know, and I knew then when the dust had settled, no matter what happens in my life now, nothing will ever feel as bad as waking up. That the feeling, I can still feel it, waking up, knowing that I'd drank the night before after a period of sobriety and upset everyone. And look, that is the most gut-wrenching feeling, when you've let everyone down again, you've done something terrible. I knew that I would never have that horrible impending doom anxiety that addicts get when they've relapsed. And it sort of made me think nothing will ever feel as bad as that. So now when I'm facing life, bring it on, because I will never feel that bad. What's the worst that can happen if I'm knocking on doors shouting about Orpheus and stuff? Because I know how bad I felt, and I know I'll never feel like that again. So it gives me this really good feeling that
Oh, that's amazing. So that being said, what's your relationship with alcohol now? Like being around, can you be around it? Can you be around people who are drinking? Like, how is that for you?
Again, this is the thing that I'm so happy I can openly talk about here, because people often find it hard to believe that people who are either struggling with alcohol or experts in the alcohol field find this so hard to believe that I can be, alcohol doesn't register in my brain anymore. I can be around people drinking. I can have my husband and my son are back in my life now. So there is alcohol in the house because they drink. I spend time with my family who drink, and it doesn't even register in my brain. Whereas in the past, even when I was going through AA, or I just got out of rehab and I was not drinking, any alcohol, anyone drinking, I would have been clocking every sip they took. It would be like, I would be like torture, and it would often become too much, and I'd sneak off and have a drink in the toilet or something. But that alcohol isn't important in my life anymore. It's like it's been, any significance it had to me has been switched off. And the beauty of that is, which other people often don't have, who who is staying sober, but you're given certain tools when you leave rehab, things like go 12-step meetings for a start, but also avoid situations that are going to trigger you, avoid situations where there'll be alcohol, don't make it difficult for yourself. I don't have to, often people who are in that position, their friends and family have to change their own behavior to be around that person. My friends and family don't have to, and maybe they probably would if they did have to, because they love me. But that makes me feel so good that I don't have to ask people to change their behavior. Alcohol is so unimportant to me, I don't even notice that it's there. And for me, when I know what I was like, how much torture that would have been, that is like out of this world. It's just incredible that the power of these tools has switched it off in my brain. It is incredible. People find it hard to believe, but it's true. And yeah, I know
there's such a great part in your book where you talk, I don't want to spoil because it's towards the end of the book, but where you talk about this realization, it was a big celebration of all these different things, your anniversary and birthday, all like at one party, and and just this realization of looking over at all these people that love you, and you're just like such a beautiful moment. But you have to read it in your words because it's so I just love that. It really got me emotional when I read that. So I know that you are involved with many organizations and helping, get the word out for people that are saying, what are some specific things that you have been up to?
Yeah, well, so my main role, or one of the things I spend a lot of time doing, is answering emails. People get in touch, and it's giving people hope. But yeah, I knocked on a lot of doors because I had that feeling, what's the worst that can happen? So I'm involved now. I speak at things like there's an all-party parliamentary group, which is with members of parliament and people from different organizations talking about alcohol, and I'm there as somebody with lived experience. There was a House of Lords Commission on Alcohol Harm that I was asked to give evidence at. And I think what is really nice for me and very powerful for them is that I'm a wealth of information and knowledge and experience that not many people know about. And the sad reason being is that I'm quite rare. People who get as bad as I do don't really survive. Right. So I did survive because of the Orpheus tools. So I've got a wealth of information for them about treatments, why I think they don't work, about what it's like to experience an addiction. And also, you'd think would be over this, but there is still so much stigma where people judge people like me, assumptions about the character of a person who becomes dependent on alcohol. So I'm trying to help break down that sort of the stereotypes, because it really does, because you feel so judged and you feel so ashamed, it prevents people from getting help earlier. The shame and the fear of being judged. So yeah, I'm involved with lots of different organizations, government bodies, just trying to help people like me, but educate the decision makers as well.
Yep, that's how you affect more. So what would you say to someone who may be watching or listening who might be in this point of feeling lost and hopeless and scared and feeling alone?
Well, the most important thing is that you never give up hope, because we've got this blame culture. People feel like that. People feel frightened and scared and alone. But it's not your fault. Number one, this is not your fault. You're not weak. There's always hope. And I would say, try the Orpheus tools. I would shout that from the rooftops. They're so powerful. And depending on where you're at in your journey with alcohol, either with an Orpheus therapist like I did, spent time with Tim. But yeah, just don't give up hope just because you've tried these really, traditional treatments that everyone has on a pedestal, and if you do it properly, it'll work. No, they don't work for everyone, and a lot of people then give up hope. But yeah, and it's not your fault. But I would also definitely say try Orpheus.
Yeah. So with that, what do you think the benefits were for you, the combination of using the tools with an Orpheus therapist versus just using them on your, because they are self-applied now with the app. You were working with Tim using like the first iteration of the tools before the app, but what do you think the benefit was for you having the therapist to work with?
I think being completely honest, because I was so far down that scale, I was so far gone and so physically ill, and so I think I needed to work with an Orpheus therapist. But the tools have evolved since then, and the ones that now people can use themselves, I'm absolutely convinced that if they'd been around when I was earlier in my journey, I wouldn't have got as bad as I did. Because like I said, the self-applied tools, they can take away the cravings. This is all about a reset button in your brain. So if you've got a craving for alcohol, the Orpheus tools can stop that happening. So they will take away that craving. And I just, I wish they had been around when I was, progressing down that horrible downward spiral. But they are there now. If somebody is earlier on and is struggling with cravings and problem drinking. But yeah, the two together with a therapist, really powerful for somebody who's more extreme like me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so people who struggle with addiction or alcohol dependent don't always necessarily have this traumatic past to do any like past regression therapy or stuff like that. And sometimes it's due to like, the beliefs or genetics or being prone to addictive tendencies. I've heard you say before, it didn't matter if the reason to drink for you was big or small, that the Orpheus tools dealt with them equally. What do you mean by that from your experience?
I think that relates back to, when I was saying about when Tim dealt with all of the different negative feelings about and beliefs about myself equally. For example, I'll use an example. I didn't realize that I'd gone through my life being affected by something that happened when I was very young at school, about free school meals. And the system that they used at our school was when you went in the same queue with your friends for so far along towards the dining area, but then you got to a point where anyone who was on free school meals had to leave that queue and go to a different area and find a card with your name on, and they were just thrown in a heap. They weren't put into alphabetical order or anything. They didn't make it easy to find your card. So I would be walking along with my friends, getting anxious about this free school meal thing. I'd then have to leave them, go to look for my card. Sometimes it took ages because they were just in a mess, but it made me feel so embarrassed and humiliated and different. And it made me feel, poor and not as good as other people. And it really stuck with me. And I didn't realize that, but as I got older, I had a tendency to be able to feel inferior to people and not as good as people, and have feelings that my self-worth wasn't great. And Tim worked on that. It might seem trivial to some people, but that was equally as important in my journey with alcohol, as some people have horrific things happen to them that impact on them and might make them drink and become dependent on alcohol. It treats them each of these negative emotions, it treats equally. They're of equal importance if the end result is that it's having a negative impact on your life,
or creating some belief system deep down within you of worthiness, sort of like. So that I had almost the exact same childhood experience, and I didn't realize how much it had impacted my own opinions about myself, of my beliefs about money and lack and worthiness, and people judging me and looking at me, because I was really young. I probably first or second grade here, like we're just this little kid at school having to wait in a separate line to get a different colored meal ticket, because we were on welfare, and having to stand in a different line. And I like that is such a core memory for me, and how it impacted the way I viewed myself, or how other people might have viewed me and my family. And that it didn't really click that was such a big belief in me about being so concerned about the way people viewed me. And so that was a big belief that I had to work around, as well as did my own work. So how could you say that these tools help someone who don't identify with having a problem with alcohol, but maybe concerned that they're becoming a little bit more dependent on it, or they just want to cut down on their consumption that might have increased because of the pandemic or whatever?
Yeah, that's the beauty of how the Orpheus tools have evolved, that they will help somebody who just wants to cut down, who wants to squash a craving. Say if somebody decides they're not going to drink on a school night during the week, and say on Wednesday they're really wanting to have a drink, they could use the tools and it'll take that craving away. So it doesn't have to be, like me, all or nothing. I don't drink anymore. And like I said, for most people, alcohol's part of, celebrations, it's everywhere, isn't it? And sometimes for some people it might become a bit of a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to become like me, but these tools are so useful, and then they can just reset that to what it was, that relationship, squashed out any cravings. And if I'm sure if they existed in the way they are now, years ago, when I was progressing down this spiral, I wouldn't have got as bad as I did. For anyone who is, maybe just wants to cut down, or is a bit concerned, they're perfect.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be alcohol either. It can be like desserts or sugar or
Could be
anything. So I know those of us that are associated with Orpheus now, and those of us that are passionate about, ending the stigma of, mental health and sharing these resources, is because we've had our own personal life-changing story. How are you now involved with Orpheus? What's your role with our team?
well. I love my role with Orpheus because it gives me a chance to, shout it from the rooftops. This incredible tool that saved my life. I would not be here if it wasn't for this. So my role, I'm actively promoting Orpheus. I'm talking about Orpheus to organizations, to, because this, as you've just so beautifully said there, it's not just about addiction, and this is about any negative feeling that is impacting on our lives. There are so many people that I've told about this who've used it for, in terms of their confidence in their career, things like, final exams in university, nerves about that. There are so many negative feelings that people can have through no fault of their own, that hold them back, that sabotage them being, what they're meant to be, their wonderful self. There are so many applications of this that my role is talking to organizations about how they might use it, for example, their staff, but also, the general public. It's just so nice to talk about something that is so powerful, that can really help so many people with a multitude. You couldn't even list the amount of things it can help with, because they're just countless, because everyone is different.
Emotions are unlimited.
Yeah. But one person's negative feeling about themselves or negative emotion that might seem, like I said, trivial to somebody else, could be having a massive impact on their life and preventing them from living a full, fulfilled life. It could be causing them deep anxiety, even things, Orpheus, it's so powerful that it's been used. People who've been involved in, for example, terrorist incidents with post-traumatic stress disorder, it's that powerful. It can be used for people like that, but also, people like some of the friends I know who've used it for anxiety, or, like I said, confidence at work, because, like we've just talked about, you get to your adult life and you're in your job, but a chance comment by somebody can take you back to being at school and feeling like that little, child who didn't feel as good as everyone. So yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
Telling people about Orpheus, telling people what it did for me, but also what it can do for so many different people.
Yeah. And just, cross age too. Like, these tools are being used in schools, with kids that are, some of the things some of these kids are having to deal with today. It's just, especially with the pandemic and
The pandemic and things things we didn't have, pressures when we were very young, with social media, not feeling good enough.
Unrealistic beauty standards. Like,
oh my goodness. Yeah. So you're so right there. Age, no matter, I would say, no matter how old you are as well, that, some of the feelings that you have that might be unhelpful or holding you back or making you unhappy could be, just reset by using Orpheus.
And changing the language we have around, mental health stigmas, and teaching our kids to have a language around mental health and emotional health. Like it's so important. And that's one thing that's been key in my life, of starting to work with the company and working with clients, and being able to apply that in my parenting with my two kids, is teaching them how to have language around their emotions and how to deal with them. And I've used the tools with them, and it's just so powerful in my little world. So I can't thank you enough for this conversation. These conversations and this topic is so important to talk about, and that's how lives are changed. And I know it's changed my life over the last couple of years, and it's so important to have people hear what you have so generously shared. Where can people find your book and find you, contact you? What are some ways they can do that?
My book is on Amazon, and it's called From Rock Bottom to Sober Forever. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
No,
and it's got a happy ending. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, it does have a good
and I am at soberforever.co.uk. And if anyone wants to get in touch, anyone who's struggling, please do. But also, check out Orpheus, because it is incredible. It's so powerful.
Yes, and you can please comment on, this will be on our different social media accounts, and so you can leave comments, share, send us a message. Somebody will get back to you and answer any questions that you have. You can go to orpheusmindtechnologies.com and check out the whole website and see what things it can help you with. Check out the app, give it a try. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you're on social media. And we're always, putting up new content, trying new things, having these conversations and interviews, and join the conversation. So reach out, and please, if you're feeling lost or hopeless or feeling like you're alone and that you're a lost cause, that there is hope for you to get help. Both of us are a testament to that there's no problem that you can't overcome. And thank you for watching. And we're so grateful for Susan for being here and sharing this with us. And we look forward to more.
Thanks so much, Lindsey. Thank you.
Lovely. Take care, everyone.
Bye.